We're going to make it though. Okay, so as I was talking about before, hopefully I'm going to try and just jump right back into this since we were basically not even doing anything yet. I'm going to just divide the page. The target area I'm going to be drawing in is supposed to be on an actual page. This is an illustration, so it's going to be about this size, and these are just my guidelines. Hopefully these lines won't exist. So up here is my brainstorming area. I know a couple of things about this music box. One, it has a spinning ship. 2, it has feet. 3, it has bulbs or LEDs. 4, stars. 'And that's about all I have so far. But we'll just keep notes up here. As I said before, I'm going to have a Google image search open on my other screen for music boxes, just so that I can sort of draw some inspiration of what they look like as a tendency. And I kind of do want to talk about reference imagery some more, but it's a little bit harder to deal with, especially since so many of these are copyrighted, and I don't want to make people angry with me. But we're going to pick, a couple nice little music boxes to use as reference points. Kind of like this one. It's very simple. It doesn't have feet, but it has little spinning guys. Keep that one open in the other page. Kind of like this one. Again, it's very different. But I'm interested in the simple. I think this one with some adaptation will be helpful. So basically, I'm just going to grab a bunch that I like, and then I'm just going to start brainstorming. I've got some of these pictures open on the other screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, what's the rough shape? I know I need a little bit of a ship. I'm just going to quick rough in just really quick sort of firefly shape. Doesn't have to be a firefly, but I think I'm going to make it be one just for funsies because it's set in that universe. And then that has to be, how does that spin? I think it spins on this axis. So it's going to have a little rod that points out this way. And maybe it's going to have little trails so that it's spinning. It's kind of highlighted by something. And then that's going to have to be in a box. That's going to have to be a nice box that opens. And I guess since that's such a big ship, it's going to have to be able to open pretty big. The top should be a little longer than that. It's going to need to be a pretty deep lid. And probably a shallow bottom. Maybe I've got this backwards. And like I said, it's got little feet. And I like the idea that they're just cute feet. And this all comes back to kind of studying descriptions and figuring out what needs to be distilled, which is another good skill for a concept artist to have. So we've got our kind of a rough in of the box. I know that this line kind of goes like this. We'll work on the finer details of perspective in a different draft. Just not worry about that. Get little stars everywhere. And I don't like the way this top-heavy top looks. So maybe if it's a little bit different, like maybe it's got a lid that kind of folds in on itself instead. So I'm going to erase this. And it's got, I like the bottom, I like the base. It's nice, it's simple, it's pretty enough. Maybe it has, what are those things? They're like little bread boxes or something. Where they have this sort of like opening that just slides into a place. Kind of like that. So how can we find that? We can do this sort of, let's bring up the back. And I guess its back needs to be a little bit thicker. Just a little. Oh, where'd my cursor go? There it is. No, white. Why am I painting in white? There we go. And then we just have some sort of quick description of form. And what do they look like when they're open? Where's my picture of a bread box gone to? There it is. Whew, hello. So what we do is we have it slide up into this compartment. So I haven't made that compartment nearly big enough. So maybe we'll just widen out. Let's see. This will be the curve along which it slides. So now we're starting to get into where shapes measure each other and help you keep reality in check. And you can start to see how this kind of takes its own form and doesn't really worry too much about how it looks in the interim stages. We've got some problems with perspective, but again, we can fix those once we know what we're trying to make. These are all just our notes. You can't be shy about taking notes. It's kind of like thinking out loud, but drawing on paper when you don't have a fixed plan. This is how you get to the fixed plan. People should be less afraid to think out loud. So we have about this much space that we need to fit into this back portion, which means that I think I'm gonna start pulling this off of the written layer. So we're just gonna real quick grab the marquee tool, do a quick cut and paste onto a new layer. So this is now, even if I remove the marquee, this is now its own layer. And I'm going to put it down here because I kind of like where this is going. I've made it a little too big, but I think I'm going to leave it like that for now, because you can always just shrink it down and kind of fix that later. So I'm going to leave that as my first base, but I'm going to keep drawing on it a little bit and decide. So this back part here needs to be able to fit this entire long curve, which has a little handle. Obviously, not that you can see it right now. I don't know why I'm drawing it, but I wanted to, and that's part of thinking out loud. Which means this part needs to be a lot longer. It needs to be long enough to house and accommodate this entire curve. So we're going to have it kind of curve down. Not that much. I don't like the way that looks. And we're going to have this curve down with it over the top. Go ahead and get rid of those lines we're not using so that they're not mucking us up and getting us confused. And I'm not measuring anything exactly because that's just not the step we're in. And then it probably pokes out a little bit here underneath this because its little handle sticks up so you can pull it back in. That's how you would use this thing after all. And so then we have the shape of this box. And it would be nice to have it not feel so top heavy. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have the box kind of take on this crescent shape. And I'm going to incorporate that into its design. Keep its little feet. I like the idea of its little feet. Go ahead and give it some curvature so that that's echoed in all of its design, because honestly the piece, any piece of art usually has what's called repetition or responsion, where something is, a theme is carried through, and it's carried through multiple times because whoever made it liked that theme and wanted to use it. Very few things have just one out-of-place thing in them if they're well-made, well-loved art. Okay, so that's kind of starting to take a shape. It's a unique little music box. I guess this is going to be a slightly more stable piece. It's going to kind of swoop down in here and be, I think there must be stars on this part too. Again, let's clean up some of those unneeded lines so we're not taking up all of our mental space with stuff that we don't need, stuff that we don't even want. Stuff we're using we'll keep, and probably I shouldn't be erasing, but I'm still thinking out loud, so I'm not keeping any of these things. I like the idea that there are very few straight lines here. I like the idea that there's a lot of curve, there's a lot of give, there's a lot of smooth and elegant shapes. It's swooping. Okay, so now I'm going to make a new layer. I think I have a new layer that I was going to make. I'm going to go ahead and make this one a little pale. Oops. Go ahead and make this one a little paler so that I know what I'm drawing over top of it. And I'm going to start using some straight lines to measure things. So we'll start with the box of the front shape, because that's going to be our kind of our front plane. So this is very thick. Let's make our size smaller. This is our first box, and then I guess we have, let's go ahead and cheat and use the perspective grid. I really like that tool in Krita. It helps measuring things, which is exactly what we're doing right now. I buggered it all up, of course. Let's start that over. Okay. So if we make a nice square, then we can decide, okay, this goes over here, about along this line. And this line is pretty straight, so good. And then we can take this down, and we just start to get some measurements, and it starts to clue us into the measurements that were wrong before. Ooh, why are you slanting? That's really weird. Oops. It's a little hard sometimes to get this one to cooperate and grab the handles instead of making a new line, but we might do. Then I think I'm going to go ahead and swing a line back so we have a flat plane of the top. And I'd like, ideally, actually, if this flat plane met this line. How do we measure this? This gets a little hard to see. If you don't have a 3D background, it's a little hard to envision what this means. There we go. That works to me. Let's get rid of that one. Let's pull this one out so it's all in the same vector. And then we can pull this one just kind of straight down. And nice. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and make all of these lines I just made make sense. And first I'm just going to take the raw sketch tool to do that. So that square, oops, I guess I'm going to make my lines bigger. That square is here. I'll do better straight lines in a minute. First I need to be able to see what in the world I'm doing. This line goes all the way out to here, so these are where the feet pop down. These little feet. This line goes back this way. This line, followed by this line. Followed by, I guess this line too, followed by this line. So this looks like we're doing all the same things, but the measurements are much closer to precise. Like you can see, there's a horizontal line that goes all the way across that this meets. And so the object is sort of measuring itself for us. And you can see that I had the perspective way wrong with these feet. And that this foot, I'm just going to make a note of this foot, even if we're not going to use it because we're not going to be able to see it. But that way we know where it is. And this goes all the way up there. Cleaner line. And this goes all the way up here. So then we can kind of start going, okay, well, we know that this has to follow some pretty nice curved lines. So I'm just going to go ahead and make a freehand curved line from here to here. Oh gosh, smaller please. That's pretty good. The tool I'm using is kind of it's one of the tools that comes with Krita, and it's a little temperamental. I don't always like this tool, but oops. But sometimes it's nice. Sometimes it works really well. Other times it's just cumbersome. You can see it cleans up the line and sort of redoes the shape for you a little bit, which is a little bit clumsy. But it gives you a way smoother line that is easy to do by hand. So what I'm going to do next, I'm not going to do this line. I'm going to kind of try and look at where on this grid that goes this way, where I think probably this line would want to end up. And I think that's going to be sort of along this line. And I don't want it to go back too far either. I want it to be a nice, gentle slope, but sharp enough, you know? Maybe there. I like that middle ground. And feel free to experiment. You're making up an object. That's hard. If you're not experimenting when you're making up an object, you're probably not making it up very well. Probably not. And then that means that this line we meet. And this line is the top point. So not this line. This is how high up that rear line goes. Smooth, smooth. Goes back that way. Probably has a little bit of substance. But otherwise, it's up, I think. There we go. That's a nice shape to it. I like that shape. Okay, and we're gonna just sort of erase those lines that we'll never be able to see. Because we'll never be able to see them, so it doesn't really matter. We're leaving some of them. The ones we're obviously not done with, we're leaving. I don't want this to go so far forward of this. I kind of want it to stay in its place. So I'm just going to touch up that line because I know better than the machine what I need from it. The machine doesn't really know directly what I'm going for. I do. I'm the one making it up. That's my problem. And then again, I wanted all these smoother lines, and this is really illustrating it for me, what I wanted. guess I want these to be pretty straight up and down for right here, but I do want curvatures here. And now this is giving me a really nice clean measurement because I can see that it's split into 5 parts, this grid. So the middle of the curve is right there, even if it doesn't look like it. And it smoothly, transitions from down near the feet to this top part here, to this top of the arc. It's a nice smooth transition that I'm looking for. And then this does kind of a similar thing. And the middle of the back doesn't matter so much because that's not a symmetrical shape. So I can kind of do what I want with it. I don't think I'm going to measure it just about. I'm going to have it go all the way up to this baseline right here that I've used. Because those lines meeting seems nice to me. Actually, I'm going to redo this line, and I'm going to try and keep into account that this line here is the same line. This is the horizontal, or this is the horizontal line that these meet. So maybe that's the highest point it reaches. And then it sort of tapers slowly down to this. Yeah, that's what I want out of it. And that way, we kind of have the same line of height. It doesn't go higher on the sides than it does on the top. I still haven't decided if I want these rails to be walls or not. I don't need to worry about it yet. So we've got that. I'm going to switch to a lighter color so that I have, because I've decided that these background lines, the ones I can't see, are actually quite important. Even if I can't see them, I need to know where they are. They're really important. So they're going to be my gray lines. These boxes, these measurements, these guides. I guess they don't need to be on this layer, though. They should be on a different layer. Okay. Now, I have a pretty clear idea of what I need here. I'm going to go ahead and start using gray for my, again, I mean really thick lines. Gray for my measurement tools. It's going to go from here to here. It's going to go from here to here. Ooh, but actually along this axis probably. We'll just leave that as a vague note. That's an important line to keep track of. This is an important line to keep track of. This is an important line to keep track of. I guess my guidelines weren't as perfect as I'd hoped. Oh well, it happens. I'm going to start getting rid of this. I don't want to get rid of this perspective tool, but I don't want to see it right now. because it's kind of in my way and it's hard to see through. Okay, so I've got a new level of detail to start working on, and that is kind of these rails that I'm going to have put in. So when you have too small a brush size, it's really hard to draw with. These rails go all the way down here and stop here, and they go all the way back here and stop here. All this. And they house something that goes across here, out here, and across, up, and across, about here. And they go all the way along here to wherever this ends, and down here. And I mean, this is kind of, I talk about anatomy in art a lot when I'm doing these streams. It's totally true. This is sort of building, this is the same idea. It's the anatomy of the object, and it's really important to decide what your object's made of, how it's built. So these rails tell me that I need thickness to these walls. Okay, so there's like a thickness to these walls so that it can be indented in. And it's got to follow about the same thickness throughout, or it looks wonky. Wonkiness isn't our aim here. Beauty is. That's difficult. I guess it's got probably a lip that goes over. Yeah, that's better than a handle, a nice lip. Everybody loves a good lip. So a little bit of a lip here. And look, we have it right on a guideline actually, so that's good. So we can just make that cleaner. Clean those up a little bit. And remember, we're drawing on another layer so we can brainstorm some more with our set guide, not having to be destroyed for our brainstorms. It's very important. This is why layers are so useful. And then we can have that kind of smooth up. And so we have the thickness of these walls. Yes, that's a thickness. And we get to see inside this track. I guess we'd see it on this side because we can see inside this wall. I guess this has to come down a little and then go in to the wall. So the lip can't be all the way on the outside because it's not on this side. So this lip has to come up here for this, not all the way out here. And then it goes in to the rail that we've built for it, which is going to be a little dark hole inside the depth of this wall. Yeah, there we go, that's something. So what we have now is going to start to serve, I'm just going to darken this, I think. No, I'm not. What we have now is going to start to serve as our our 2 space base. And I mean, I'm going to, I'm left to those guidelines. I'm going to work on the stars and the ship and all the details in a minute. First I'm going to give myself a frame. with which to do that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start deciding planes. So I'm going to pick a shade of gray. I'll just make this my, my neutral gray shade. And I'm going to start, this is a new layer again. This is probably one piece of wood. And so I'm just going to color it without any inlays or anything fancy. Just color it in like it's one piece of wood. And I guess I should probably do this. No, I won't do it under my layer. That way I'm not reliant on the liner. So this is probably a nice single scalloped little plate. And I'm going to start really just being really liberal with a bunch of different layers so that I have the information all stored away. So that's going to be like the frontmost layer. This is going to be the same color because it's the same angle. In fact, you know what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to take this, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate the layer and move it along this axis. And that way we just sort of have the same thing. I'm going to move this one lower because this one's behind. And now I'm going to start picking out a lighter color because I kind of want the front facing one to be lighter. It's just easier to sell that as believable. So this plane, which is a different plane, but is important to record in no less equal measure. This front plane is here. And we're going to just kind of remember that this front plane is this color. Those side planes are that color. That way this little frame that we're building will mean something. This bottom plane is probably going to be our lightest one yet. And it's going to start here and go far back, I guess. I mean, all the way back to here, which is like along this line. I guess I haven't really thought about the rear plane. See, this is why we're doing this. Three-dimensionality is hard. Need a bigger brush. Bigger brush. And we're going to start doing the rear plane, which is kind of between, I guess it's below that. So the rear plane meets and follows along with this, meets and follows along with this, and I'm going to have to make it, I mean, it's going to have to be gradiated, but for now we'll just do this color because that's what that plane is supposed to be. It's that front-facing plane. Let's cross this way. Then we have like this downward-facing plane, which would be this, but we can't see it. Then we have this front-facing plane again. brush size. Apparently it's not nearly as big as I thought it was. Oof. Okay. We've got another front-facing plane here, which is the lip, oops, the front of this lip, which goes all the way across. I guess we're going to have to make this invisible so we can see this front-facing lip, which goes all the way across, and then up a little bit. We have our top-facing planes, which are behind that. Which go across like this and over here. And that's going to have to gradiate into a front-facing plane. We know that, but it's not yet. That's the next step, gradations. Oops, I didn't make a new layer, did I? Whoops-a-daisy. Do I have anything else in this layer? Hope not. Come on, man. Front-facing planes. Front. This. And I guess we have another front-facing plane, like right inside the rail here. Sort of. And where's this one? There we go. Oh, that's supposed to be top facing. Whoops. This rail here is supposed to be front facing. And then this is supposed to sort of change to front facing. There we go. Maybe this is really supposed to be in front of that. There we go. So front facing planes. And I mean, I guess that's kind of the majority of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to group all of my layers. Group layer. Just take all of these sketches and brainstorms, put them in this group layer, except for this one, because that's kind of, there we go. And that way I can just move my whole music box when I want to. I can take it away from this perspective grid that's really hard to see through. So now I've got this sort of start of a shape. And the question now becomes making the shapes a lot cleaner and clearer. So this floor shape, that's pretty simple. We'll start with that. I'm just going to go ahead and, oops, what was that? I'm going to go ahead and isolate the layer real quick. And I've got this nice square. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go back to my brush tool and just finish filling it in with the color as decided. And then I'm going to overfill. This is easier to do in my opinion. Just sort of overfill it and then go to your polygon select tool and just clean up the edges. It's easier to do that than say try and use the line tool or anything like that. Because the polygon select tool is just going to give you a straight line from point A to point B, which is exactly what I need. Cool. So now we have, if we isolate this layer again, a really nice, clean, since I'm working in such light colors, I'm going to go to the background layer and I'm going to invert its color. Now I'm going to make a new background layer so that we can really do a test and really see when things are wrong. I'm just going to make it a bright, contrasting color. Oops. Better not have the marquee tool. There we go. That way we can see through the holes and things like that. And we can see that this is a really nice square everywhere it needs to be. Oops, right, we can't just isolate layer. So it's a really nice square everywhere it needs to be.
Okay. Wednesday, isn't it?
Yeah.
You started already?
Mm-hmm.
Crud. Because I forgot till right now about this and I wanted to get your company doing sushi.
Right now? I'm probably going to end the stream soon. It's been going for almost an hour. And we're pretty good in the context, but I wasn't planning it to end yet.
Well, I'm not obviously not ready yet. Haven't talked your dad into it yet. My plan, if you were willing to be involved. What the hell?
Don't.
Don't?
Just don't.
Was to try to make it a fun, low-carb meal and just order all sorts of low-carb things and try to prove to Van that would be fun, and Juniper, that would be fun.
That doesn't sound fun.
Yeah. It'd be lovely if you piled in to help, if you could.
Hello, Smiley Man. Sorry, I don't know when you posted. I was so focused. Welcome to the stream. Okay, back to refining shapes. So the goal here is to have nice, hard, clean, crisp feeling shapes because the idea is this is an inlaid box. This is, you know, it's kind of got inlays of wood and it's got hard corners that meet other hard corners. Kind of like that shape even better than what I had originally. So we're trying to give it really a crisp appearance. Maybe we'll tone that down later, maybe we won't. But for now, we're just going to give it as crisp an appearance as we can. Just starting with the biggest, obvious shapes. This one's going to be the hardest because just getting a smooth line is going to be difficult. But we'll do our best. Okay, so I think I've gotten kind of the shape I want. And we're going to go back to this, and we're going to see how nice and crisp that is. Aha, I'm on the wrong layer. That's what's happening. Whoopsie. I need to be on this layer. And erasing there. Around this one. And then painting in to this one. So obviously I kind of failed at my task there. We're going to try this again. We're going to go ahead and make a nice square. Nice square with some very up and down angles. Then we're going to go ahead and take our polygon tool and we're going to remove bits. First the squarest bits because those are the easiest. Not that. Then we're going to Bezier it. That's what we're going to do. Whoopsie. Okay, we're going to learn how to use the Bezier curve tool now. Because I don't. I just don't know how yet. Really haven't tinkered with it. So we're going to try and remove things. Ah, I see how this works. Okay, I think I see how it works. So if you drag, it'll give you a clean line, or it'll give you your Bezier handle. And then if you just click, it'll give you your real thing. Oh, nope, that's not how it works. Hold on. You get to watch me learning. Isn't it great? Okay. Whew. The lengths of these curves is really problematic. I imagine you get better at this with practice. Okay, so this is going to go up this way, like this. And it's just going to smooth curve. And then we're going to go up this way like this. It's going to kind of smooth curve again. And then we're going to go down this way like this. Whew, I hate the corners. How do people do this? Beziers, my worst nightmare. So this is a straight line up. That's what this curve is supposed to represent. Oh goodness. Okay. I think I just did something useful. I just did something right. Now we're going to fix what we just mistakenly did wrong. Add. I'm going to add a little bit back to the Bezier curve tool. Okay. That's not super bad. Oh. Ooh, okay. Interesting that now it's going both ways, and it wasn't before. What's going on here? What changed? Okay. Probably I was holding Alt or something, and that's what changed. Sounds about right. I just really like that to be a much smoother curve. Hey. Cool. Okay, I think that's the shape we want. So now we just need to get rid of this little nasty shape. So ideally, we have our perfect shape. Everything's fancy and wonderful. That's not how it works in practice, but you know, ideally, you get closer and closer to how you want it to work. And then just go ahead and fill that shape in, and it's smooth and beautiful. And that'll have to do for now. And we'll duplicate this again. Instead of trying to do the same thing on the other side, we'll just delete this and move it over here so that we don't have to try and perfectly match it. In fact, what we're going to do actually is move it with the arrow keys. Oh, can we move it just... We can't. Okay. Just going to real quick try and eyeball it, not worry too much. So now we have our lovely shapes, and they're working out about as well as they can. The cleaned up finished shapes. Are these, and obviously there's still some cleaning up to do because they're not meeting perfectly here. They're overlapping a little there, but we've got the basic gist of it down. Let's see. I'm going to put my base layers over top of my other layers so that I can see what's going on. And I'm going to go ahead and try and make another we're going to foray into the Bezier curve tool again. And we're just going to do this. That's almost a perfect shape right off the bat. Nice. I like it. And this is, of course, side facing. So I'm going to make a really quick layer. Is this our layer? Yeah. And this is going to be in front of that layer. I'm going to make a really quick layer. We already have the right color selected. Bam. That's a side facing layer, so we know what that is. And then this layer can go and just go across from that layer with our polygon select tool. At the highest point, straight across, ideally. And I think we've got it, so we'll try again. At the highest point, ideally straight across, which is hard to tell from this close in, all the way. And I'm using the pixels on this line tool as a guide. Once the line seems flat, it stops having this kind of corrugation in it, I'm probably on the right track. Okay. And you notice I'm not really giving too much, not really caring too much about, I did this wrong. Oopsie. I'm not really caring too much about this side. I'll come back and fix that in a second. Because really what I'm trying to get right now is the big outside shape, and The hardest to get right outside shape is the bottom because it's spanning across so much. Oh, I didn't get it right. Darn it. Hey. Gotta hold shift the whole time. It's pretty straight. Nice. Okay, I got it. Yay. What we're going to do is that invert, erase everything that's not in this line. Invert again. Select your color, fill it all in nicely. And I'm going to do a little, what's the top facing color again? Oh yes, this. I'm going to do a little magic where I have two colors selected, and then I do a little gradient, especially since I have the whole area selected, it won't color outside that. So color to color gradient. New. Away. Away. A little bit higher. Perfect. And obviously I kind of want this shape mirrored on the other side. So what I'm going to do is a little bit of a trick where I duplicate this layer. Duplicate, get rid of the marquee, move you over here, and I'm going to turn this off so I can see what I'm doing. Move you over here to this little bit. I'm going to come in to this layer and just real quick erase, erase the bits that extend past. Take this layer, make sure it's directly over top this layer. Take this layer and preserve transparency, which basically means I can't draw outside this area. Color it the same color, and then just merge it down. Merge with layer below. So now I have that same shape. It's all nice. What next? This top thing? Maybe, yeah. So, here's another time where I'm just gonna use the same things I've got. I'm gonna use what I've got. I'm gonna take this layer, duplicate it, and move it to the side. Whew, it's actually gonna be easier to do it on the other layer. Duplicate this one. Move it to the side. Try and keep it level with itself. Again, preserve transparency. Pick the, I guess we're going to do the gradient again. So we have front facing and top facing. We're going to do the gradient. We have preserve transparency. And it stops being front facing about here. Starts being top facing about here. So that's where our gradient is. And obviously there's, there's some implications here. I don't know what that's from. Is that from this layer? Oh, right. I kind of changed the shape of our layers. Whatever. Fix that in a sec. So obviously there's a little bit of poke out, but we only really want it to be just this part here. give this some depth, and we don't really need anything else, so we're just going to take it and erase, even up here, this is going to be a different layer. Erase up here. No, this isn't going to be a different layer, but we're definitely erasing around here because we don't need any of this stuff. And then we're going to kind of want to do the same thing for this layer, duplicate, move. This is a little harder to see. About to there. And then I guess what we're going to do is we're going to create a layer between these two so that we can see that. I'm just going to really quick paint. Oops, just really going to quick paint between it. And anything that isn't covered by this layer, which we're going to then use as a select. There we go. It's just going to be erased. Oh, all right. Oh. And now we have that. This should really be in front of this layer, I'm feeling. And this should really be in front of this layer. So that we have that nice and tidy. But probably shouldn't extend beyond this line. Bam. Oopsie. Oof, not that one. This one. And this one. Cool. Okay, so we're starting to have some legitimate shape taking place. Again, we're going to do the preserve transparency gradient trick. Starts here, ends up about here. Whoopsie daisy. Not erase. Whoopsie daisy. Not erase. Starts about here, ends about here. And I'm not going along the line. I'm just going straight up and down because if I go along the line, I'm going to get a weird crooked angle. I'm going to get a weird crooked angle here where the light goes, and I'd rather it just sort of treated this like the light was at a straight angle because it's easier to talk about, think about. I'm going to go ahead and erase this guy here because it's not being useful. And then I guess now we go back behind this layer and let's just sort of, let's delete everything below here because it's all been replaced. Let's create a nice clean straight line here. Where we erase all this top stuff. Let's get rid of our guidelines and try and get the absolute topmost portion of this, but not any more than that. Cool. Now we are going to, once again, gradient. I guess we're going to go this way this time. It's not exactly that's front facing. Or rear facing. It's more complicated than that, obviously. But there is curvature to it. And then we'll get rid of all of this excess on top. And I guess we'll get rid of this excess and this excess. And we're going to go to our magic wand tool. We're going to go ahead and select here. And we're going to get rid of this excess as well. So we have a pretty clearly described music box shape. I am starting to feel like this is good. I don't know what's causing that gray line. I don't like it. Now, if you were really being methodical and like careful, you'd probably be naming your layers as you go. But I'm really not being that. Do we have any more lines? Okay, so we're going to do a couple more squares because squares are easy. So if we go ahead and just do this, and we use our gradient for front to top facing, we make sure shift so it's hold steady. Oops. And we make sure that we're not on a race. Then we have another clean line to work with. And we have another clean erasure to work with. And then I guess this one should really be in front of this line, but not all of it. It's more complicated than that. I take it. It's definitely in front of, or it's definitely behind this. This one I'm seeing should absolutely go all the way up to here. And definitely should be full of this color. I'm thinking probably we can get away with reusing this layer for this. This is front facing, and we're not going to worry about shading at the moment. So we're just going to grab the front facing color, paint it in. Shading will get more complicated, so will coloring. we're going to get the top facing layer. We're going to create a new layer. This one will be from here to here. Actually, from here to here. Yeah. It'll be top facing. Did I already do that? Top facing. Cool. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it below this layer. It may seem counterintuitive, but I'm going to do that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this layer and I'm going to start from here and delete. And this will also be a square marquee tool. In which I paint and outside of which I erase. Cool. So, I'd say that's the start of a music box. From here to where we are now. And now if I was really getting crazy, I'd talk about shading and I'd make sure that everything that goes further back inside got darker as it went. And I think that's all the next step sort of thing. So probably this is light. That's pretty light. That's good. Stuff like that. This can have a little darkening though. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to normal draw mode. We're going to get black, set our opacity really low, and change the brush style to something really fuzzy. Yeah. And then we're just going to sort of, oops, we're going to preserve transparency on this and make it dark.
How you doing?
Done pretty soon.
Okay. Dad hasn't had a break yet, so I haven't been able to talk to him.
And then we're going to, this is obviously shadowed. Under here, it's shadowed further back. And in the dark corners, it's shadowed more. And now you can kind of see why I was so stringent about all these layers. It's like the layers really help control where you're shading. So here you start to get a clearer sense of what's what. But here we have a highlight to do. So we got a nice small brush size. We get to make this brighter. Right along here we make it brighter. We make it darker again back behind it. And I'll make it darker along this line because of ocular occlusion, which is a fancy lighting term that basically means in crevices is darker because there's just not as much access to light. And then of course this part's darker because it's way back there, so it's really dark. It's darkest in corners and where joints are and where shadows are cast. This should just be noticeably darker than what's in front of it so that we can see where one thing ends and another begins.
Hello.
Hello.
What you doing?
Art stream. Apparently this is not a useful layer. Apparently this is not a useful layer. Apparently this, oh, that is a useful layer. There we go. Is this a useful? Yes, that's a useful layer. I would also say this layer and this layer ought to be the same layer. So I'm going to merge with the layer below. And I would also probably say this layer, well,
It's a bed.
it's not a bed.
Oh, it's not a bed?
No, it's a music box, but it's a fancy music box. It's different looking than many music
Kind of looks
boxes.
like a bed.
We're just going to leave that as it is, actually. We'll worry about this in a moment. No, I'll worry about it now. Cool.
Well, we ate. Oh, poor, but I think he's not to. But he doesn't really want to.
And then we go back to brushes.
But if you wanted to bring me some tofu, I can use some tofu. I have a lot of tofu, but I can probably use
Remember to preserve transparency, or you just make a black smudge all over the top of everything instead of shading your object. It's one of those situations. And so we create the illusion of depth. It's not perfect. Probably won't be for a while. Probably won't be perfect, but we create something of an illusion of depth. And then next week, or maybe just on my own time, we'll start working on more refining, and we'll add in the stuff that it was originally supposed to be there, like the feet, the stars, the ship. So far I haven't done any of those things that were originally in the brainstorming. But I think that's where we're going to leave it for now, because we've been going for an hour and a half. Quite frankly, I'm tired. Thanks for tuning in. I hope to see you next week. Hopefully we'll have all of the problems sorted out before then. Oops, I kind of didn't want to say that. Hopefully we'll have all the technical issues sorted out before stream time, and that won't cut into our start time. I will see you then. Again, thanks for tuning in. It's been fun. Peace out.